this for 5 years now, and the list goes on and on as far as the things that we've learned and how much we've grown as business people, how much we've grown as leaders. But an issue that we've continuously confronted is is making sure that we're always interacting with ethical and professional people, whether that's internally, as far as the quality of our team and the demands we place upon our team for professionalism, mutual respect, but that also goes outside of our company and the third parties that we work with, our partners in various aspects of the business. We also demand a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of ethics from them as well. And I think that I'm very proud of us for being demanding when it comes to that. I think that sometimes it's easy and it's tempting to do business with other companies or other business people who don't quite meet those standards. And I feel that we don't compromise very much when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's tough though, because the more that we've been doing this and the more the company has grown, obviously we have more interest from other folks that want to do business, whether it's sending us leads for loans or people who want to work with the company. And it just gets much more difficult to manage all of those relationships. There's so many of them now. And
Hundreds.
a lot of times they look to the two of us to shepherd them in and to work with them. And I do find it more and more difficult as the company grows to figure out what the right thing to do is sometimes. Because occasionally, you want to work with somebody because you think that relationship is going to bring business to the company, and that's the best interest of Idea Financial. But at the same time, we never want to compromise the morals and the ethics just to get business, because that's a slippery slope that can continue to get worse and worse.
It's something that we've faced from the beginning since we formed this company. It's something that we face every day. And I think with the exception of a few counterparties we've done a very good job of never compromising. And it's something to be proud of because we're under constant pressure to grow. We're under constant pressure from our investors, from our board of directors, and from ourselves more than anybody. Yeah. It's very important that we continue to grow our business. And as we have more and more pressure to grow, I think it's even more impressive that we stick to our fundamentals and we don't compromise when it comes to that. And the same thing, it's not just about compromising when it comes to who we're dealing with outside of the company, but it also, for example, the way we underwrite our loans. I think that's analogous. There's always that pressure to grow, and there's always that temptation to somehow compromise what you know is right and what you believe is right to achieve certain goals or to cope with certain pressures. I think that's a theme that we deal with every day, is not compromising what we know is right, not compromising our beliefs for the sake of growth and for the sake of coping with the pressures.
One of the hardest things, I think, when it comes to running any business, but in particular a business that deals with technology and finance the way that we do, is the hiring. Because as everybody knows, right now hiring is extraordinarily difficult. There's people who can find jobs anywhere for what seems like unreasonable amounts of money, because companies, they need workers so badly, and there's so few people that are willing to do the job. And one of the challenges I think that we have faced, and I'm sure others have faced, is when our leaders want to hire people, they feel pressure to get somebody in quickly. And there's a balance there. If you get somebody in fast, but they're a bad culture fit, they're not going to do the job, you waste so much time training them, putting them through the process of teaching them the technology, and then all of a sudden you realize all that time was wasted because it was a bad hire. So I think one of the things that we've recently been working on more and more is working with our leadership team to try to make smart hires and not just fast hires, because fast hires can be really, really dangerous.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the hiring issues that we have sometimes, because it's the same sort of dynamic that's when it comes to the partners that we deal with, when it comes to our underwriting and who the customers that we accept. It's a lot of times it's about dealing with the demands and the pace of our business. And sometimes there's always that risk that you compromise.
Yeah.
Whether it's in hiring decisions, underwriting decisions about who to work with as far as our counterparties, there's always that pressure to compromise. And of course, sometimes hiring is a great example. Sometimes there's decisions that afterwards you look back and say, well, how do we miss that? Or we should have done this differently. And it's always a good thing to be self-critical when an employee decides to resign, or employee's not the right fit and we have to let them go. But we learn from that always, and I think that as we learn from that, we always come back to the conclusion that we have the way that we think this company should conduct itself. We always have, I think, from the very beginning, there's been ethics, morality, professionalism in the company. We've held everybody to a very high standard, and it's not just us now; it's our entire team. Our entire team holds everybody to very high standards, and sometimes the candidates for the jobs don't meet those standards, and I think that's something that you can't compromise on that either. And if someone's not the right fit, you have to accept it. And we're learning about how to screen for that. We're learning about how to predict, to the extent that it can be done. But it's always challenging if you interview somebody for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours even, or they come back multiple rounds. How can you really get the insight into that person's, their beliefs about how that person responds in our, unique environment? We're not General Motors. We don't have training sessions and that kind of structure. We're a little bit more freer flowing, and I think that that's what makes us special. We've been able to solve problems very quickly. We've been able to grow very quickly, and everybody here thrives in that sort of, I wouldn't call it casual, but it's not overly structured either, and some people don't. And how do we look for that? How do we detect that early on? I don't know.
Well, so when we first started Idea Financial in 2017, we came from the law firm background, and it was a small law firm, at least mine. I know you worked for a bigger practice, but law firms are very hierarchical. There's lawyers, there's associates, partners, there's staff, and there's really not much in between in a law firm. So culture, it doesn't really have the same meaning when you're practicing law as it does when you're running a company that has multiple different departments, multiple different leaders. And so when we first started Idea Financial, some of the guys who are still with us today, they were very focused on culture and culture fit. And we always used to sort of scoff at that and say, culture. What are you guys talking about? Culture's not, let's just make sure we get our job done. Stop talking about culture. But now, after doing this for 4 or 5 years, I got to give them credit for teaching us how important culture is in an environment like this, Because if someone doesn't fit into the culture of the company, it can break down so many different areas, It can infect the entire company itself. So when looking for somebody who is the right fit for any position here at Idea Financial or LevelEsq, it's not just their skill set, but it's, are they going to make a contribution to our culture? Are they a cultural fit for Idea and for Level?
Sure, and I think that one of the more important attributes, and you see it in the leadership of this company who grew up from within, it's the ability to work in an environment where there's no strict hierarchy, there's no set rules. It's about problem solving. It's about being able to shift gears 1,000 times a day. And I think that it all started with, to an extent with us, when we would set the example of being able to shift gears 100 times a day. Still actively practicing law, and we were still running Level Insurance, which had only been in the marketplace for a year or two. And we were building this company up at the same time.
Yeah, we were crazy.
So we were just, it was nuts. We'd be shifting gears so many times per day. One of us would be going, we still had the law firm on Brickell. So we'd have to take those little ridiculous scooters over the bridge back and forth. We'd have to go to court sometimes. I remember having an appellate argument in the 3rd DCA, and getting ready for that hearing, and then coming back in my suit to the garage downstairs, and having to go from arguing to an appellate tribunal to dealing with the problem du jour here with our sales team, and then dealing with marketing issues. People thought it was nuts, and I think it was.
It was crazy, but it did teach us. It taught us a lot. We had to balance a lot, and I think where we are today, it helps to understand what the culture of this company is. But one of the reasons why I guess I feel somewhat more comfortable in LevelEsq, even as a newer brand than Idea Financial, is because we're dealing direct with those customers. Those customers have come to us because Level Insurance is something that we cultivated over several years. There's no intermediaries necessary for that part of the business. We're going directly to the lawyers. They're coming directly to us, and I just feel like it's an easier flow. It's an easier flow because it's something that we understand as lawyers, and we don't necessarily need to rely upon as many people to teach it to us. It's the other way around. So the introduction of LevelEsq into this company is like a breath of fresh air for me.
Oh, it's, for me too. I wake up every day and I'm so motivated. It's like we have a new startup within the startup, but it was actually the first business that we started. So the way it's come full circle, I know for both of us has been tremendously gratifying. We couldn't have cooked this up. It happened. A lot of things happened by chance, and that which created opportunities for us to finally have the two companies under the same roof. But when that finally happened, it was like a breath of fresh air for both of us, and it gave us a new motivation to grow that part of the business. And it's particularly meaningful for us because that was the first business that we started together.
Yeah, it's like I'll turn to the camera and talk a little bit about just the beginnings of what Level really was and is for the two of us. When Larry and I first met, most people start businesses because they have this long-standing personal relationship, or they're brothers, or they're mother and father, or father and son. It didn't work that way for the two of us. Instead, by chance, I ended up renting a small office in a law firm that Larry was already working at. I did my business, I was doing my personal injury work, and Larry couldn't stand some of the people that he was working with. So
it wasn't a good culture fit for me.
Exactly. And so he would like duck out into my office and we would just bullshit and talk. And I think Larry, he was only in his 20s at the time, recognized that the risk that I was taking in that company, in that law firm, by spending all of my own money on my cases at such a young age, it was a risk that couldn't at that time be protected.
Right.
And I'll never forget, you're sitting in I was reading The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success at that time by Deepak Chopra. And I was trying to be all zen and shit and trying to, organize my life and let good things come to me as opposed to trying to pressure things that I was trying to get. And it was at that time that you came to me and asked me that question as to whether there was a way I could protect my costs. And I think in most cases, that kind of conversation between two lawyers would just end. And that would be it. Oh, no, there's no way to do that. And we would move on. But that is not how we did it. Instead, when we realized that there was a major problem that had not yet been solved, we went to work.
We did. We shook hands that day, and we decided to become partners. And that was the beginning of what's still going on today. And you're absolutely right. I think 99.999% of discussions like that would end after that day.
Yeah.
But we executed and we followed through, and it took years for us to get to market. And I think that was the first journey that we went on together outside of practicing law, but being business people, and not just being business people, but being novices in an industry that we knew virtually nothing about.
Yeah.
And I think that the lessons that we learned from being in enormous boardrooms and huge, international insurance carriers peppering us with questions, most of which we didn't know the answer to when they were technical insurance questions, but we learned. Every single meeting we improved. And I think no matter what, we weren't afraid.
Right.
We weren't intimidated. And I think that characteristic has really been one of the keys to us getting to where we are today, is not being afraid, not being intimidated, and understanding what we didn't know, but not letting that ever stop us.
Or necessarily letting other people know that we didn't know.
Yeah, we're good actors.
Yeah, well, I guess when you're a trial lawyer, you're always somewhat of an actor because you're putting on a show in front of a jury. But it was I'll never forget. So when we first started talking with one very, very large insurance company that I'm not going to name, they invited us to go into this conference room. They flew down from another state to meet with us. They invited us to go to a conference room, which what we thought was just going to be a discussion. And we walk into this room to talk about why Level Insurance should be a great product for them to accept within their company. And they had 4 television screens staring at us with 4 faces that we had never seen.
From all over the world.
And they were there to basically try to prove why our idea sucked.
Yeah.
The whole idea was that all of them were like either lawyers or quasi-lawyers or wannabe lawyers, and they were all trying to break down what the guy who came to meet with us really wanted to do. He wanted to do it, but he had to go through all these bureaucratic channels, and their goal was to break us down.
And that was the first of many times where we had walked into a boardroom or a conference room and essentially been ambushed.
Yeah. It's like that was the craziest thing. But the best part about that and every other conversation that we ever had with an insurance carrier before we finally got the product to start in 2016 is that the people that we would approach to talk about this would come in with a negative, immediate thought about what the product was. Because listen, what the product is,
Yeah.
we are insuring plaintiff lawyers so that if they lose their case at trial, they get all their money back. We're providing insurance to a world that has been battling insurance companies for decades. And for insurance companies to provide support to what ultimately has been their sworn enemy for so many years is sort of unheard of.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these companies are in it to make a profit, and if they can see a product that is profitable, they're going to want to do it. But for us, the first thought from all of these insurance-minded people was, how could I ever get behind a product like that? But when the conversation was over, they were all believers.
Yes.
And I'm saying that not out of ego or being braggadocious. It's that we always used to tell people, explain to us why this product that we're offering is bad. Tell us what we're doing wrong.
That was our motto from the very beginning.
Because we don't want to waste our time.
Right. That was our motto from the very beginning, whether we would take out some very prominent trial lawyers here in town, and we'd say, we'll take you out to lunch anywhere you want. Talk to us about this idea that we have, but tell us why we're wrong.
Right.
Because we were still unsure of the viability of the product. Maybe there was something that we completely overlooked that would just make it not a viable program.
Right.
It was that new of an idea that we knew that there was potentially unknown things out there that we hadn't thought of that would cause us to just fold the tent up and say, all right, on to the next thing.
Yeah, and we went through a lot of no's, a lot of rejection because of those political concerns that some of the carriers had. But when we finally launched the product, we got with a company that really believed in us, which was great. And we finally launched the product. It was like the next hurdle. In July of 2016, I will never forget, as a trial lawyer, I used to go to these conferences all the time. And I would be the person walking through and ignoring the vendors because I didn't want to be bothered talking to them.
Yeah.
And then I, all of a sudden, and you were the vendors, and we were the ones who were being ignored, not just by lawyers, but sometimes by lawyers that we knew because they were our colleagues.
Oh, that was even worse. It's true.
And so they would give us some niceties and maybe spend a little time because they maybe felt bad that we were sitting there trying to hawk our product, but it was very humbling.
It's to this day, every conference we go to, sitting at a booth in a conference when people walk right past you is a very humbling experience, and it takes a lot of persistence.
I hate those conferences.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed them more. But when they're good, they're good.
Yeah.
When someone comes up to you and just wants to ask, they say, "Oh, I heard about the product from this person or that person, or I got one of your emails." And they love to hear about it, and it's like their eyes open for the first time. That never gets old.
No, you're right.
And it's worth all the bullshit to travel, be away from the family, to go to places wherever, in the middle of the winter. For those moments, it's still worth it. I still get a thrill from it.
What I've always enjoyed about Level Insurance in particular was once you start talking about it with a lawyer, they can't stop asking questions. And I think the best example of that, and I know you'll agree, is when we were in a position where we were forced, and there's a lot of details behind it, we were forced to go to the Florida bar to ask for an opinion as to whether lawyers can pass the premium onto their client as a case expense. We always thought that it was reasonable and that lawyers may do it, but when we were finally forced to do it ourselves and go before the Florida bar and ask them to issue that opinion, we were given 5 minutes in front of the Florida ethics board at the Florida Bar Conference in Boca.
In Boca.
Yeah, so we walk into this conference room. Actually, no, it was more like
a ballroom.
Right. We walk into a ballroom, and it's like a big
It was like a horseshoe.
Square. Yeah, I think it was a full square.
Was it?
Yeah, of desks.
But probably 40, 50 lawyers.
Yeah, of all different practices, because they're all part of the ethics committee for the Florida Bar. So they're real estate lawyers, transactional lawyers, defense lawyers.
Yeah, everything.
Plaintiff lawyers, everybody. And they had a whole big agenda for that day. And they told us, you guys got 5 minutes to make your presentation. We had given them an expert opinion as to why the premium should be passed on. We hired Dr. Anthony Alfieri out of the University of Miami, a very prominent ethics professor. And we figured that we'd have a couple questions, they'd kick our asses out. We were there for 2 hours. 5 minutes turned into 2 hours because it's like volleyball. One lawyer asks a question, and then another one, and then all of a sudden it's nonstop. And they're sitting there, some are supportive, some are trying to poke holes, and then they're fighting with each other about some of the ethical considerations.
That was like the appellate argument of our lives.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And then, of course, the crazy thing is that they assigned a subcommittee to decide whether they should issue an opinion in our favor. The subcommittee came back and said, yes, you should be able to pass the premium on. But the ethics board still said no. And then we had to appeal it.
all the way to the Board of Governors.
Yeah, we had to
in
fly to Tallahassee and sit before the Florida Bar Board of Governors and make our case. And finally, they saw what our vision was, and they saw what we were saying, and they agreed with us. And that really was a pivotal moment in the program, because for lawyers, they have to come out of pocket for this insurance. And it's of great value, even if they never get the premium back. It's a tremendous product. But the moment that they know that premium can be paid for by their client in the event of a successful settlement, it changes the game completely.
That was a pivotal moment for our business. We always knew it would be. And we continue to reap benefits from that, I think very well-reasoned opinion. Utah followed afterwards. North Carolina followed afterwards. There's been favorable trial court opinions in Georgia. Pennsylvania. We've heard the bar in California also said that it was okay, through a hotline, through one of our clients. Pivotal moment in the business.
It was,
But it's another thing. We never said no.
Right. We never allowed no to stop us.
Never.
And that's really.
We never take no for an answer.
It's been an important part of the business, and it's taken some time. And even after we started the idea financial, we were operating Level as sort of a side business, a hobby. I'll call it a hobby because we didn't have a lot of time to put into it. But the moment that we were given the opportunity for IDEA to acquire Level, that was a total, complete game changer, because we have all these great people that work at IDEA, and they've done such a great job of building the IDEA brand and of shepherding that brand into the market, and it's been a great success. When we had the chance to give them a new baby, Level, they went nuts, and they've done such a great job. And to be able to loan money to lawyers in combination with the insurance is really what our vision always was from the start. But financing is tough. You can't just get financing when you're an insurance broker. But now, with Level being able to issue loans through IDEA and also continue issuing the insurance, we now can give lawyers a suite of products that really nobody else can give them, because we're the only insurance product in the market.
Nobody else can do it.
So we can monopolize that market, give them something that gives them the ultimate protection. So if they lose their case, the money that we loan them is going to be paid by a third-party insurance company and not by them. It gives them such power and authority.
Yeah. We always knew that insuring the downside risk, that was a huge problem that we were solving, but it was just a partial solution. The other part is access to capital.
Right.
And now that we're able to do both, it took us almost 10 years to get to this point. It's tremendously gratifying, and I think we're just getting started with the amount of change that we're going to cause in the legal industry, in particular for plaintiffs' lawyers.
Yeah, I think.
And it's very exciting.
See, when I first started as a plaintiffs' lawyer, I worked for a pretty prominent group of guys down here in Miami, and they're older, they're in their 70s, and they did things the way it's always been done, which I think is a problem with law firms in general, is they don't change very quickly. They adapt much slower than other industries. And so these guys were always spending their own money on every case. So they would settle a case, they had $100,000 in costs in it. Instead of taking that money and taking it as profit or building their firm with it, they would just roll those expenses into another case and another case. And so when you go talk to a law firm, you got to ask a question: how much money do you have on the street? That's sort of a ubiquitous question that you can ask anybody. How much money do you have on the street? They're all going to give you a number. The answer should be zero. You should never have money on the street. You should be leveraging and borrowing that money so the money that is locked up on the street can be used to expand your practice. And for whatever reason, some of the older lawyers who've been doing this forever, they never latched on to the idea of taking on good debt. There are other companies that do it, but I firmly believe, and I'm not just saying it because Level is our company, I think that we do it best because we can give them the money, we can give it to them interest only, and then we can back it up with an insurance policy that really protects the most catastrophic loss for them, which is the trial loss, so they now have the freedom to spend without much concern at all and get a better result.
They have the best solutions in the market. Also, we know that we can give them the best experience in the market because our underwriting process, we built that out over years with IDEA Financial, with the small business lending side. And now for the first time, lawyers have access to that sort of lightning fast and convenient underwriting. Hours, a day or two maybe, not months. We don't require life insurance. We don't require first position, perfected interest, and all the assets of the firm. And there's a lot of things that we've learned as small business lenders that we couple that with our experience in insurance and as plaintiffs' attorneys ourselves. And I have no doubt that we've created the best product in the market. We were speaking with one of our new customers, I think it was yesterday, and he put it fantastically well, that he thinks if the last 10 years, if he would have not had any money on the street, and he would have taken that $500,000, we'll call it, and done a million of other things with it, it'd be worth so much more today.
Yeah.
If he would have put it in just a S&P index, or invested more heavily in marketing his firm, or just taken it as a distribution.
I'll never forget when we first started Idea Financial, we had a group of folks that were doing our credit for us, and they brought a lot of the old thoughts and the old habits of other companies to us. They knew we're trial lawyers. They knew that's what we did. And they wanted to restrict lawyers from being able to get any loans at all from Idea Financial, make them a restricted industry.
That's common in the entire industry, I think.
Similar to, companies that do pornography, strip joints, like Vices. They wanted lawyers to be in that group because so many other companies that provide small business lending have just completely eliminated law firms from the ability to get money.
That's how they were trained.
Which is ridiculous. So maybe it's because they're afraid lawyers are going to sue them. I don't know what the reason is, but in my opinion, and I know that you agree, the risk that you take in loaning money to a reputable law firm is so low. These are folks that not only are they trained to respond to the ethics bar of their own state or their own jurisdiction, but most of them run very solid businesses with great cash flow. It's just that many underwriters don't understand the cash flow because it's not like a widget you're selling and you're not creating revenue on a regular basis. And because they don't understand that, they've completely eliminated them. So the few folks that actually do provide financing to law firms, they have the luxury to just take their time and do whatever they want.
And charge astronomical rates.
Ridiculous stuff. And ask for life insurance like you said before. Ask them to do things that are so out of the norm for small business lending that it almost becomes insulting, but lawyers will just sit back and take it because they don't have any other options.
Well, because compounding what you're mentioning is that just conventional banks don't like to lend to lawyers either.
Because they don't understand them.
So you have the regional banks, the local banks, the super regionals. They're not lending to lawyers either because they don't understand the peculiar nature of a plaintiff's practice. And also, the biggest problem for the banks is they don't know how to place a value on really the only assets that the law firms have, and that's their unrealized fees from their contingency cases.
Right.
And it takes, I think, a lot of expertise to be able to do that properly.
It does.
And it scares the banks.
And there are some good folks out there who provide lending to lawyers, but they take forever. So one of the benefits that we provide to lawyers is, first, we're lawyers, so we understand them. Second, because Idea Financial, and this is really important to understand, is that in small business lending, if you can't get a loan to the small business owner in a day, somebody else will.
Oh, yeah.
And so the speed is so critical. And so we've had to build a system that responds to that need. Now we can take what we've built with Idea Financial, apply it to the law firm, and give them super fast financing that nobody else in the industry can even come close to doing.
How long is our online application now? 5 pages? 6 pages?
It takes like 3 minutes.
If that?
Yeah, it takes like 3 minutes.
A lot of it's just check boxes, too.
Yeah, whereas paperwork is required by others. We have what I think is the most innovative system to provide lawyers loans. The only concern, I guess, is that other people are going to try to replicate what we're doing, but I love the fact that we're the first in to do this. I can't believe that it's taken this long for a company to provide law firms with the same type of small business financing that so many other businesses can get. But I guess that's our good fortune, is that we get to solve another problem.
Yeah, it's great. Another market we get to enter into first.
Exactly. And so for us, I think it's the culmination of 10 years of hard work to be able to now get back into our own industry and be able to provide our own industry with a solution or a group of solutions that they've never had access to before. And if I'm a plaintiff's lawyer and I get an opportunity to borrow money from LevelEsq, I'm going to take it every day of the week. And I'm not just saying that because it's my company. When you can go and get a line of credit, you can have that company track the interest on each individual case so that you can pass that interest on to your client. We don't charge for that service like some of our competitors do. And they now can just draw whenever they need on the money to be able to pay their expenses. It unlocks unlimited potential for growth.
It makes the businesses more efficient. So even if you keep growth stagnant, which nobody wants, even that, it creates much more profit for the firm. But every firm wants to grow. Every lawyer wants to grow their practice. And you need capital to do that.
Yeah.
One way or the other, you need that capital. So the question is, where are you going to get it from? what's the most favorable product and what are the most favorable terms, and we have that.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do. And so, when I think about the trajectory of LevelEsq and like what I see for the future of the company, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be the primary provider of capital for plaintiff lawyers throughout the entire country. We have the capacity to do so. We have the best process for lawyers of anyone else in the business. And we have expertise. When you talk to other folks in the business that are providing financing, none of them are trial lawyers. None of them have actually experienced the pain of losing a case and losing your money. We have. No one understands the level of preparation it takes to get a case from the beginning to the end. The other finance companies are simply looking at the law firm and saying, what can we do to protect ourselves on these unknown assets of cases? Whereas we understand exactly what they've done on a day-to-day basis, and we can provide them not just the money, but also some advice and some thoughts and some counsel on how maybe we would do
Which
things.
I think it's been a very fun part of what we do. Day to day, we speak with our customers, we speak with potential customers, and it's not just a sales call. It's really talking to them about the business of law.
It's consultation.
It is. It's more consultative, and I really enjoy that aspect of what we do day to day. And I also think that the fact that we can provide insurance and mitigate the downside risk for our customers, it's so unique. And that goes back to our ability to understand the psychology of being a trial lawyer, understand the psychology of being able to sleep better at night knowing that the money you have on the street is protected, the psychology of hiring that extra expert or hiring the better expert or bringing them in live to testify. We know what that means, and we know that having the insurance coverage can give our colleagues that extra confidence to do that. You recently interviewed one of our customers. I thought it was so great about him very methodically working up this case, and I think that the best story he told us was that they did an accident reconstruction. I think it cost them about $50,000. When they went to focus group, one of the focus group members mentioned something that may be considered a flaw in their reconstruction, specifically that they didn't have a laptop in this car. And they went back and they did a second reconstruction for another $50,000. And he specifically told you in the interview that if they didn't have litigation cost protection insurance, they probably would not have done that second reconstruction. And who knows, the failure to do that may have changed the outcome of the case.
For sure, because they now had more information to give their client the best chance of winning. And I think one of the things that we tell our clients and our prospective clients all the time is that there is an obvious benefit from litigation cost protection. Obviously, you lose your case at trial, you have insurance, you get your money back.
Yeah.
That's obvious. But what I think people overlook sometimes, which is part of our education process, is that there is a sword available and not just a shield. And the sword is that defense lawyers and insurance companies on the defense side have historically always taken the position that they can outspend the plaintiff because they have endless resources. They know that if they push the plaintiff far enough and they spend enough, they can beat them into a settlement negotiation that may not be exactly what either the lawyer or the client really want. But when you have litigation cost protection, that conversation about what you're going to spend is completely erased. You can now tell the defense, I don't really give a shit about what you're going to spend because I got protection. Every dollar that I spend in this trial, if I lose it, I'm getting it all back. So who cares?
And that's a powerful message to send to the defense.
Yeah, and it could. So what I tell lawyers these days is, let's just say you have a $100,000 policy, and it's going to cost you $7,000. So you have to put out $7,000,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to the. By the way, if you're spending $100,000 on a case, that case is a seven-figure case. So the case has tremendous value.
Yeah.
If you then go to the negotiating table, and the defense is offering you, let's say, $900,000 to settle the case, but you really want like 1.2 as your bottom line, you tell them that you spent that $7,000 on that coverage. If it returns you another $100,000
It's an amazing ROI.
think about the return on investment on
Yeah.
that $7,000 expense, because you put them in a position now where the defense is like, holy shit, this sword that I've been using against the plaintiffs for years is being reversed on me, and now I am in a position where I have to figure out what I'm going to do to counter that.
Yeah, you know what's great? We always thought that litigation cost protection would become this not just a shield but also a sword. We always thought that it would give it would provide better negotiating leverage and change those dynamics. We always thought that. And after a couple of years of having the product in the market, and our actual customers would call us up and tell us that that was happening. Yeah. I thought that that was that was a coup for us because it felt very good to be providing that extra benefit to our clients and to our colleagues ultimately.
Well, I'll never forget.
We changed the dynamic.
And I'll never forget, obviously the plaintiffs tell us these stories, but I will never forget the phone call that we got. And I won't name the insurance company.
Oh, I remember this.
From an insurance company lawyer, a lawyer for the defense that called us and wanted to talk to us. And I said, why on earth would a defense lawyer want to talk to us?
Well, when our receptionist let us know who was on the phone, we looked at each other, we said, uh-oh, what's going on with this?
Yeah, we didn't know what to expect. But this guy told us, he thanked us for inventing this insurance product because he said, when I go back and talk to the insurance adjusters at this insurance company to try to get cases settled, I tell them what I think the case should settle for. But they always think they know everything. And so they want to put a value on the case that they think is the right value. He said, now that I told these guys that this insurance was on this case, they were like, like we don't have that anymore to threaten the plaintiff with. And they are able to get the cases settled better with their own insurance companies because of the existence of litigation cost protection. And the insurance companies are more likely to take their advice as to settlement value because they no longer can threaten with overspending.
I remember that day very well. That was just about the last thing we expected that guy to tell us.
It was definitely crazy, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. And that's exactly why plaintiff lawyers that are not using litigation cost protection, I think they're putting themselves at a disadvantage at this point. Because the advantages that they get just from having that piece of paper, that expenditure that they're putting on that insurance.
And by extension, their clients, of course.
Right. They're going to get a return on it if they use it appropriately. So not having it is actually at this point putting them and their clients at a disadvantage.
Absolutely. It's really, at the end of the day, it's about maximizing the value of the case. And the client stands to gain, the attorney stands to gain, and this tool in many different ways allows us and our colleagues to maximize the value of each case, which really is the end game.